Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shah, Yahweh, Bahashil, Yahweh Shah, Bahashil, Badash. All praises, honor, glory, love, respect, faith, empowerment, and trust, and all credit to my Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and my Heavenly Big Brother, Yahweh Shah. Thank you so much for what you're doing, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. Double honors to the apostles and elders and bishops of GMS, Great Millstone, who I learned from, and all the men scattered all over the world, teaching this truth and none but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh Bashim Shah, trying to put a spiritual bug in you Hebrew Israelites' ears, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and your speckled birds. And what is a speckled bird? That'd be a Hebrew Israelite that look like some of the heathen nations, like, for example, Hebrew Israelite that look like a so-called white person, so-called Chinese person, etc., etc. Got some videos lined up on what's going on in America. I'm going to play these videos. I'm going to get into the scripture my best ability, say what I'm going to say through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shah, the Holy Spirit, the Kurhak, Dash, Lord, wouldn't be on me. Let's get it.
Something serious is happening in the US bond market. Investors are demanding higher returns to lend Washington money for 30 years, while some traditional buyers, including foreign central banks, are stepping back. If demand weakens as US debt grows, borrowing costs could rise across the economy. The warning is not that America is about to default. It is that financing its enormous debt is becoming more expensive. The 30-year Treasury yield has moved above 5%, while the 10-year yield has climbed to around 4.6%. These yields influence mortgages, car finance, business loans, and federal borrowing costs. Even a modest increase could add hundreds of billions of dollars to future interest payments, forcing Washington to raise taxes, cut spending, or borrow even more. The renewed conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran is adding pressure. Oil prices surged as attacks resumed, and Tehran claimed it had closed the Strait of Hormuz. Higher energy costs can spread through transport, food, and manufacturing, keeping inflation elevated. That makes existing bonds less attractive, leading investors to demand higher yields. This is how an energy shock in the Gulf can quickly worsen America's debt problem. Reuters reported the spike in oil pushed two-year Treasury yields to their highest since February 2025 at 4.2393%, while Fed fund futures implied 39 basis points of policy tightening by the end of the year. The dollar index was up 0.05% at 101.13, with the euro rising 0.05% to $1.1394. The greenback added 0.24% on the yen to 162.12, regaining some of the ground lost on Friday, when Japanese Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama floated an idea to encourage the $1.8 trillion government pension investment fund and other retirement vehicles to bring some of their money home. The important point is not simply that one Treasury yield reached a particular level. The market is rapidly changing its view of what the Federal Reserve may have to do next. Investors had previously hoped inflation would fall far enough for the Fed to reduce interest rates. Now markets are pricing in the possibility of one or two increases before the end of the year. That is a dramatic shift. Higher rates would make it more expensive for the federal government to refinance its debt. They would also keep borrowing costs elevated for families and businesses. Meanwhile, Japan's discussion about bringing more pension money home highlights another longer-term risk. If major foreign investors decide they can find attractive returns inside their own countries, less of their money may flow into US assets. America would then become more dependent on buyers who demand a better price and a higher yield. Oil and inflation are not the only forces pushing yields higher. The bond market is also being flooded with new supply. The US Treasury must sell vast amounts of debt to cover government spending, refinance maturing obligations, and fund continuing budget deficits. At the same time, major technology companies are borrowing heavily to pay for artificial intelligence infrastructure, data centers, chips, and energy supplies. These companies are sometimes called hyperscalers because of the enormous size of their operations. Their bonds compete with treasuries for the same pools of investment money. Investors therefore have more choices. If a major technology company offers an attractive return, some funds may buy that corporate debt instead of lending to the US government. The Treasury can still attract buyers, but it may have to offer higher yields. That is the difficult combination now developing. Heavy government borrowing, massive corporate issuance, persistent inflation, and geopolitical uncertainty are all arriving at once. Take a look at this clip where the panel explains how higher energy prices, government deficits, and an enormous supply of corporate bonds are combining to push yields higher.
Yeah, definitely. Higher energy prices, higher oil prices has led to higher inflation expectations. And it's almost restarted this route in global bond yields, if you will, with gilt yields, bond yields, as well as JGB yields rising in tandem. So geopolitics is definitely a very important factor in the price action in the bonds over the last week. And, add to that concerns about debt and deficits. I mean, that's something that's, again, back in the forefront. You discussed, the issuance coming from some of the hyperscalers. So in aggregate, you're looking at a lot of bond supply that the market has to absorb, and that's also pushing bond yields higher.
The phrase "the market has to absorb" is central to understanding this story. Every new bond needs a buyer. The US government can issue more debt, but it cannot force private investors to accept any return Washington chooses. Buyers look at inflation, the strength of the dollar, America's budget deficits, and the alternatives available elsewhere. If they believe inflation will remain elevated or that an enormous amount of debt is coming, they may demand a discount. In bond markets, lower prices produce higher yields. This is why yields can rise even before the Federal Reserve changes its official interest rate. The market moves in anticipation of what it believes will happen next. The bond market is effectively telling Washington that the price of borrowing cannot be taken for granted. Reuters recently asked 74 bond market strategists where they expect US Treasury yields to go next. These are analysts who study government debt and predict how borrowing costs could change. Their answers showed that Wall Street is divided. The average forecast suggested the 10-year Treasury yield would remain near 4.48% over the next 3 to 6 months, before falling slightly to 4.39% within a year. Some believe market...
I'm going to start right there. But if you want to watch the rest of it, be my guest. They go to title, they go to channel. Hey, America's in thick clay. A lot of debt. It's like they owe themselves the money. Because, I mean, they print... I don't understand this shit. I can tell you this shit going downhill. And it's pretty much ultimately leading to that chip implant, the market of the beast. I don't be trying to get all into that, how the money works and all that shit. Man, I don't get into all that. All I want to hear is bad news for Babylon. And bad news is here. And it's building up more and more. Who's bringing the bad news? Yahweh Shema Shah. Let's get to the next one.
If I were him, I'd...
Have you noticed something recently? America is richer than ever before, but millions of Americans feel poorer and poorer. While Wall Street celebrates record highs, the middle class is shrinking, homeownership is slipping further out of reach, and many families are working harder and harder just to maintain their standard of living. Critics argue that the U.S. economy increasingly rewards those who own financial assets rather than those who earn wages, which creates a system where wealth compounds at the very top, while economic mobility becomes more difficult, if not completely impossible, for everyone else. If current trend continues, the greatest threat to America may not come from a foreign rival. It may not come from China or Russia.
Comes from within. Caused by Amalek.
Or anywhere else. It may actually come from an economy that leaves an ever-growing share of its own citizens behind. Despite the United States remaining the world's largest economy, millions of Americans feel financially worse off than they did just a decade ago. Housing has become unaffordable, healthcare costs continue to climb, college tuition has exploded, and even middle-income families are struggling to build wealth. The majority of Americans nowadays cannot afford to purchase a home. They cannot afford to pay their medical expenses out of pocket, and so they're driving up their medical bills, they're driving up their credit cards. It takes decades to pay off your tuition, and while the rate of savings has been declining for years.
Hey, look at that scripture. What the hell are you doing? You should do all been going around in circles for 3 times. You're trying to find that perfect spot to lay on. And it's on the floor. It's like these dogs weird, man. They go around in circles 3 times until they finally lay down. And I'm just like, did you find your spot to lay down yet? Hagar chapter 1 verse 6, ye have sown much and bring in little, ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, ye clothe you, but there is none warm, and he that earneth wages to put into a bag with holes. Yeah, that's pretty much everybody in America. And pretty much all over the world, but this is about America.
At the center of this transformation lies one of the defining economic trends of the past half-century, which is widening income inequality and the gradual disappearance of the American middle class. Today, we're going to examine why this is happening, what is driving these trends, and what they could mean for America's future. Income inequality simply refers to how unevenly income is distributed across society. While some degree of inequality certainly exists in every country on earth, the United States has experienced one of the largest increases among advanced economies since the late 1970s. According to the Congressional Budget Office, income inequality has steadily increased over the last 4 decades. The primary driver has been the much faster growth of market income among households at the very top of the income distribution compared to everyone else. This does not necessarily mean that everyone else is becoming poor, by the way. It means that incomes for many middle-income households grow much more slowly, while incomes for top earners accelerate dramatically. The result is that a growing share of national income is concentrated among fewer households. And so the trend has fundamentally changed the structure of the American economy and also our society. Perhaps the clearest evidence of this transformation is the changing size of the middle class itself. I've written a detailed article over on my Substack and my Patreon on this, so if you're interested, please go check it out. I will link it below. According to research, in 1971, approximately 61% of American adults lived in middle-income households. But by 2021, that figure fell to just 50%, and it continues to decline. Meanwhile, both the upper income and lower income groups expanded. The upper income share grew from 14% to 21%, and the lower income share increased from 21% to 29%. Some economists point out that part of the shrinking middle reflects upward mobility, with more households moving into higher income brackets. However, others emphasize that many households have simultaneously slipped downward due to stagnant wages, rising living costs, and declining economic security. In other words, America's middle class has been hollowed out from both directions. There isn't a single explanation, of course, of why income inequality is growing. Instead, economists generally point to several structural forces that are working together. First is technological change. Automation and artificial intelligence (AI) have increased demand for highly educated workers while replacing many routine manufacturing and administrative jobs. Workers who possess specialized technical skills naturally expect much higher salaries than those who perform routine tasks. Now, second is globalization. Over several decades, manufacturing production increasingly shifted toward lower-cost countries. And there is a good discussion to be had about the advantages and disadvantages of doing that, but the United States has effectively deindustrialized, and its economy has become financialized. While consumers benefited from cheaper imported goods, many American manufacturing communities experienced job losses and wage pressures. Third is declining union membership. Labor unions once helped negotiate higher wages, higher pensions, and benefits for millions of workers. And as union participation declined, many workers lost bargaining power relative to employers. Now, fourth is education. College graduates continue to earn substantially more than workers without higher education. At the same time, the cost of obtaining that education has risen dramatically, which creates additional barriers for lower income families. They cannot send their children to college unless they can provide for them or secure their financial and living situation during those 4 years. And so that is a barrier that many lower income families are unable to overcome. Finally, changes in financial markets have disproportionately benefited households that already own significant assets. As stock markets, private equity, and real estate appreciated over recent decades, wealth accumulated much faster among asset owners than among wage earners. Since wealth generates investment income, those who already possess capital often see their incomes rise faster than workers who depend primarily on salaries. Now, let's discuss why many Americans feel worse off. Income statistics only tell part of the story, of course. Living expenses have increased rapidly in several critical areas. Housing prices have risen much faster than incomes in many metropolitan areas across the United States. Healthcare costs continue to consume a growing share of household budgets, and childcare expenses have become prohibitively expensive for many families. Higher education often requires students to accumulate substantial debt before entering the workforce. Even if wages have increased nominally, many households feel that each paycheck buys less financial security than previous generations enjoyed. And so this is one reason why surveys consistently show widespread concern about the cost of living despite relatively low unemployment numbers. Now, let's discuss the wealth gap and why it is even larger than the inequality gap. Income inequality often receives the most attention, but wealth inequality is even more pronounced. Income refers to money that you earn every single year, but wealth refers to accumulated assets such as homes, retirement accounts, investments, businesses, and savings. Families with significant wealth can generate investment income, they can benefit from rising asset prices, and then they transfer wealth to future generations. Families with little or no wealth often remain dependent solely on labor income. So as asset prices rise over time, wealth inequality can expand much faster than income inequality. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle in which wealth increasingly generates more wealth.
But that's not happening for the average people. Nope. The elite, they're taking all that wealth away from those people. No, and I forgot. What was the scripture I looked for? I forgot.
Now, what can happen next? If current trends continue, economists warn of several long-term consequences. One possibility is slower economic growth. Middle-income households typically spend a larger share of their income than
harped up treasures for the last days. Yeah, that what it was. You know, the rich man. Is in James chapter 5, verse. I'll just start from 1. Verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your measure shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. The money, U.S. currency ain't shit. And shall eat your flesh as it will fire. Ye have harbored up treasures for the last days. Yeah, that be the elite. They taking all the wealth from the American people, most of their own people, the Edomites, and pretty much everybody, and shit, even the other heathen nations. They thought they have a future in America, and shit, I'm sadly mistaken. These devils here about to take everything from you, and then, hey, they setting shit up to get you people get their microchips. It all roads leading to that chip implants.
Wealthier households, if more income becomes concentrated among top earners, consumer demand may weaken over time. Another concern is declining social mobility. Historically, Americans believed that hard work allowed children to surpass their parents economically. But rising inequality can actually
not this time.
Reduce opportunities by making education, housing, healthcare, and even business opportunities increasingly dependent on family wealth. So those who have wealth will be able to start a business or go to university or earn a degree, while those who do not have wealth will have to continuously rely on their paycheck. Political polarization may also intensify. Large economic disparities often produce growing dissatisfaction with existing institutions. People from different economic backgrounds begin experiencing entirely different realities, which makes political compromise more difficult, if not impossible at all. Finally, growing inequality can increase financial instability over time. When large portions of the population rely heavily on borrowing simply to maintain their living standards, household debt rises, making the economy more vulnerable during recessions. Can the trend be reversed? Well, that is a very good question, and unfortunately we don't have a crystal ball, but economists disagree sharply on the best solutions for this. Some advocate for the expansion of access to higher education, vocational training, and workforce development, and others argue for tax reforms that reduce after-tax inequality. Some propose stronger labor protections, increased competition policy, or measures that encourage broader ownership of financial assets. There are also debates about housing policy, about healthcare reform, childcare affordability, and of course retirement security. No single policy is likely to reverse decades and decades of structural change. Instead, most economists seem to believe that multiple reforms would be required simultaneously. Now, for that to happen, there has to be political will to actually help the American people, rather than spend billions of dollars on foreign interventions, funding foreign wars, funding bombing of other nations that address neither national security concerns nor American economic challenges and interests. The United States remains one of the wealthiest nations in history, it's true, but how that wealth is distributed has changed dramatically. The middle class that once formed the backbone of the American economy has gradually become smaller. Income inequality has widened, wealth has become increasingly concentrated, and the cost of achieving a middle-class lifestyle continues to rise. Whether these trends continue or whether policymakers find ways to strengthen economic mobility may ultimately determine the future of what we once referred to as the American dream. The question facing America is no longer simply how much wealth the country can create. It is how broadly that prosperity can be shared. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. As always, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Take care.
No mosquitoes near this bird bath that's never been drained.
OMG, y'all. Travelers swear by this one trick. What's up with Mom?
It is July 20th, 2026, and as we continue to watch the U.S. and its escalating war against Iran, we also have to take a look at the economic impacts, as we have traffic in the Strait of Hormuz coming to a halt, as we have Yemen announcing a maritime blockade on Saudi Arabia, as we have the U.S. in this position where they think that they can break Iran, but the war they are pursuing stands to break the global economy, and the U.S. economy especially. All of this, as you have China in this position where the U.S. has tried to hurt them with their energy blockade, right? They have had their eyes on China, their top competitor. Well, China's over here, not only handling the blockade, but also making new partnerships along the way, as countries around the world learn that they do not want to work with the United States moving forward. So what does all of this mean for what we should be keeping an eye on in this current conflict? Well, we got into all of that and more with a special guest earlier, so let's take a listen to that conversation now. Joining me now to discuss is Professor Richard Wolff, an author, founder of Democracy at Work, and host of the Economic Update. Professor Wolff, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Glad to do it. Very glad to do it.
Great to have you back on the show. Now, I want to get your take on the latest here, as I know that the war the U.S. is waging against Iran continues to escalate. You've got the U.S. military expanding airstrikes to target Iranian bridges and other civilian infrastructure in recent days. You've also got Iran responding with strikes across the region, and it has vowed a crushing response to infrastructure in the Gulf states if the U.S. continues. Now, you look at all of this and you go, this can't be good for the global economy, especially as traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has come to a halt once again. So, to start out, what are your concerns when it comes to the war in Iran and the impact it's having on the economy?
Okay, the first way to answer this question is to say some things are already clear, other ones not so much. So, to give you an example, it's already clear, as I'll go through with it in a moment, that a whole lot of adjustments are being made around the world in all kinds of ways, some of which are getting publicity, many of which are not. And those are done, and I don't think many of them will ever come back, no matter what happens with this war, or even for that matter, with the Gulf of Hormuz. Then there are other things that hang really on the Gulf of Hormuz, and whether this war comes to an end in 3 days, or 3 weeks, or 3 months, or goes on beyond that, hard to imagine as that might be. So let me start with those adjustments that are already being made. And let me underscore how deep and significant this is. So here's the punchline, then I'll tell you the joke. The punchline is the economic cost of this war already exceeds any conceivable calculation as to what the war might have achieved had the United States won, or even for that matter, had Iran won. This is going to be one of those wars, like many, that go down in human history, making all reasonable people from now on scratch their heads and say, how could the people on both sides have been so nutty, so distracted to have done this? This is as the human race goes, we are collectively shooting ourselves in the foot. It makes no sense. It's way out of...
Well, actually, it's the will of the Lord that's allowed making this happen. The Lord's controlling all these people, man. Yeah.
Report. There are some egos playing a role here, and at least on both sides.
The Lord got these people in a fog. They so stupid, and they're so distracted, so stupid with their bread and circus, and the Lord got them in there, but not with the elect, or the hopeful elect to become of the elect. There's some people that's not, Israelites and all that, just some regular folks. They see what's going on, but the rest are just, they're gone. They're in the twilight zone. But consider yourself blessed not to be in the same position as these other people are.
I'm being as polite as I know how. But this is irrational. This is not...
You'd be wondering, how did this ever happen? Well, the Lord made it happen.
So, let me start. Every country in the world, every country is rethinking all kinds of strategy because of what's going on. A few examples. Countries are deciding to rearrange their long-distance supply chains to be less reliant on ocean shipping. Why? Because look what can happen to ocean shipping. The Strait of Hormuz is not the only strait in the world.
There are many others, yeah. They ain't even mention about the other ones they having conflict with.
There's another one right nearby in the Red Sea that the Houthis, who are close to Iran, can close at any time. And if they do, then Saudi Arabia, the second or third largest source of oil in the world, will be unable to get its ships out because they have to come through the strait there, which is controlled by the Yemeni Houthi people, and they are friends of Iran, very close to Iran. So we could at any time get a spike up again in oil prices if the Houthis make that decision. It's not in Mr. Trump's control. The United States has tried to control the Houthis 2 times now, failed miserably both times. The Houthis can close that strait if and when they wish. I wish it weren't so, but it is. And everybody who pays attention knows it. So, and then there are straits all over Asia. They're all over. And who knows now whether, once the world accustoms itself to what we're watching, which is one of the so-called third world countries in this planet of ours, Iran, is able to control the strait and make it a source of income for itself. The Iranians are going to have to rebuild after the Americans bomb everything, and they're going to need to charge for the oil to go through, shipping to go through. They should have been doing that long ago anyway. They know that. The only reason they didn't is they didn't have the strength to do it. So, when a ship goes through the Panama Canal, which is the same story, it pays a fee, a hefty fee, to manage all of that. Well, anyway, country after country is reorganizing. They're not going to use ships. They don't want to be stuck, not just in Hormuz, but anywhere else, which means
I'm going to start this. If you want to watch the rest of it, be my guest. They go to title, they go to channel. I'm not gonna go over and hell no, I ain't playing 40-something minutes of this and not gonna be jumping one spot to another. Just gonna play some of it, let you be familiar to the video if you want to watch it, because I'm just building up, trying to get some videos built up for sources and proof to show you this bitch is coming to an end. America's financially crashing, collapsing, and Yahweh Shemal Shah is behind it all. Let's get to the next video.
I am absolutely buzzing because I just deposited my 401k. I deposited my 401k because I took it all out so that I could pay off my credit cards. I was drowning in credit card debt because I had lost my job when I was traveling in Europe. So I had to put everything on my credit card. I was paying like $1,300 a month in credit card debt.
This truck was one of the worst financial decisions of my life.
Shit.
At the time, I purchased it for around $125,000. I put down around $50,000 and my payment came out to around $1,375 per month. Currently, I still owe around $69,000 on the balance.
Financial literacy in the U.S. has steadily declined over the last 10 years, with people failing to answer questions about borrowing and earning money. Questions as simple as, what is a loan?
Did you have a loan on the car? No, ma'am. So you had no loan? No, ma'am. The car cost $1,700. That was the down payment. The whole price, it was like $7,000. So there was a loan?
There was a, yeah. Anyway.
They financed it. Well, that's a loan. Oh, okay.
Goodness, girl, how simple can you be, Eve?
You put down the down payment and the rest you took out as...
She's 19 at the time.
The loan. It's finance. You got to pay it back. Yes, ma'am. The finance company gave you the loan.
Nobody gave me a loan because it was car payments on it. So only money that was given was the $1,700.
Now, people in the audience laughed at her, but every year the TIA Institute does a financial literacy survey, and this year Americans answered only 47% of questions correctly on average, a statistically significant decline from the prior year and the lowest result in the survey's 10-year history. And the group that scored the lowest was Gen Z, answering only 38% of questions correctly on average.
Let's break down my monthly payments on my 2026 G80 M3 competition. I have the carbon buckets, the carbon interior package, extended leather, and of course X-Drive. So with that being said, the MSRP on this car...
I'm guessing she got a BMW. She said X-Drive, so... Yeah, and them seats, they look BMW-ish. I'm not a car enthusiast, but... kind of remind me, it's a BMW.
Car was just about 100K flat. I traded in my 2022 Chevy Silverado RST and I got $12,000 in equity, so that went right into the down payment for the M3. I financed it through BMW at a 6.7 APR for 72 months. Now, with that being said, I also do not plan on keeping it financed through BMW. I'm going to refinance it through a credit union with a lower APR. My total monthly payment is $1,500.
Anyway.
And if I didn't put anything down, it would probably be roughly around $2,200. That's my monthly payment on my G80 M3.
You know these dealerships love to see young people pull up. We can go straight to the comments. $1,500 for 72 months at 6.7%, open schools back up. $1,500 a month is a mortgage. That's $120,000 for a car, which value depreciated to $75,000 as soon as you drive off the lot.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey right now. These comments go on and on, people roasting her for her bad financial decision. But that's the thing, a young person not knowing any better, financing an overpriced car to flex on TikTok, now that's the dream customer. And it's not just car payments. People are so comfortable with debt now, they post it as content.
I owe Klarna $2,688.90. I have to pay $369 within 7 days, but I'm going to pay that out probably tomorrow. Hold on.
So... why even, if you're gonna pay it, why even have, fuck it.
It get worse. I still owe $1,294.74 for the month of July. Oh my goodness. I done got money orders, I done got gift cards, I done got clothes from City Trends, I done paid for hotel room. I'm not finna ask Keisha for $100 so she can tell my business to any and everybody. If I need...
But you do, why the fuck are you putting this shit on the internet? Goodness gracious, bro.
To depend on something, it's gonna be these motherfuckers.
Her justification...
a lack of knowledge, man.
For using Klarna is so that she doesn't have to borrow money from a friend and tell them her business. Yet here she is
telling her herself her business.
Telling all of us her business. This only serves to normalize debt. It's okay, girl. The government is trillions in debt. I owe $200 on my credit card and $1,900.
I can't wait for this bitch to collapse. These niggas here, fucking do it, Esau. God dang. Can you, come on, bring in a false flag event so I ain't gotta worry about this shit? Damn, I know it's gonna be some dangerous shit about to go down when they crash this shit, collapse this shit. But at least I ain't gotta worry about fucking paying a bill or working. But, well, there will be a work. There'll be, keeping your faith and trust and patience in Yahweh Shemal Shah. That's work.
$160 to affirm. It's yours to spend, friend. Just keep a good balance so that it doesn't stress you out. Klarna has done some crazy marketing to make people believe that they're not a credit card company, because what do you mean it's yours to spend? It's not your money, you're borrowing it. And of course, people bring up the national debt, which, if you don't know, just hit an all-time high of $39 trillion. And I'm not disagreeing that it's hypocritical for the governments to be trillions in debt, but the difference is these corporations will get their money.
I was supposed to have a court date today. Yeah, I ignored a debt collector and they sent it to a law firm to sue me. And yeah, I got sued by a debt collector. And I thought the chances of that happening were like slim to none. Like, it was...
You should have been better off dealing with the debt collector. At least you don't have to worry about paying interest. Well, a debt collector, hell. I mean, it's I ain't gonna get into it, but you better off dealing with a debt collector. You just pay them, you work something out with them, and then boom, that's it. Yeah, and that's it. You just work something out, and you have to, most time they're not gonna add no interest. They just say, look, man, pay $7,000. So that'd be like $100-something. They might do $100 or $200 a month payment plan, and it will take you like three years to pay that shit off. 3 or 4 years to pay that shit off. Boom, let it be.
Only $1,000. Do they really want to like have to go after me for $1,000? Like, what is?
What? Really? And you couldn't? Anyway.
No, they did. Yeah, they sent the constable to my house with the papers saying.
Yeah, the cop.
That I need to sort this out.
Just this week, I got extra hours, which made me become a full-time worker here, 32 hours compared to the 12 hours that I was getting. As soon as I...
And you were thinking people by now be getting away with this shit. Now I was hearing that people are getting away with this shit, and they're not even like really giving a damn about... What the fuck? Hold on. Yeah, man. What they saying? Oh, it's supposed to be that way. Yeah, they were saying that these banks or these debt or whatever, they not like really caring because there's so many people owing money and shit. Now they do care. They still serving people and all that shit.
Except that the new hours, y'all.
They still want their damn money.
I got notification that I was going to get garnished out of my check. I realized that it is.
But even when they want their money, hell, they ain't gonna want it that bad when this whole shit collapse.
It's Capital One, and they claiming $6,275.
But despite all of this, the debt keeps growing. Credit card debt now sits at a staggering $1.25 trillion, and roughly 13% of those balances were at least 90 days delinquent in the first quarter of 2026. Which is sobering when you consider that many people don't even understand how interest works.
Yeah, and it's like, it shouldn't be adding interest anyway. But living in this devil society, hey man, let me get to Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is the servant to the lender. And see, we're not on top. And who's the one who's on? Who's the lender? Esau, Amalek, that owns all the banks. We ain't supposed to be hell. I mean, the Hebrew Israelites ain't supposed to be known. Why they? Hold on. When the Hebrew Israelites are in captivity, they're not supposed to be known to be owning banks and giving out loans to people. No, that shows you those people are not the people. We are. We're the daggone borrowers, not the lenders. No. What is this? Exodus chapter 22, verse 25. If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as a user, neither shalt thou lay upon lay upon him usury. So the interest. You shouldn't be adding interest. If I borrow some money from you, I'm gonna pay that amount, but not just pay that amount that I owe you, but not plus some more. It doesn't work supposed to be that way. But Esau ruling, hell, it is. And he don't go by what the Lord wants you to do. I mean, he doesn't play by the Lord's rules and laws and such.
We paid $9,286.32. We only have $952 of our actual mortgage paid off. $6,000 of that, $6,423.23 has gone to interest. and $1,911 has gone to taxes and insurance.
$6,000 to interest?
$6,000 to interest.
What the fuck?
People are financing boats, cars, houses, not understanding that their loan has interest and that interest is paid back to the bank first. And this tracks out.
That's how these banks making a lot of money.
With the survey, only 40% of people correctly answered a question about an interest rate that compounded annually. And now we're seeing the consequences. Young Americans who bought when house prices were at their peak. When you bought a house in your early 20s, but it ended up being your worst financial decision, and now you're 24 and can't leave because the equity is giving negative. So she's under the impression that after only owning her home...
Alright, enough of this. Anyway. Hey, Esau, with all these people owing debt, all in debt, and they, how can I say, all these people that's in debt, Esau gonna have a solution to get you out of debt. The chip implant, the RFID microchip implant. They'll have like a debt forgiveness program for you. Yep, they got debt forgiveness programs for people who want to join ICE. Why about having one if you want to get a chip implant? Shit, man, you better seek Yahweh Shema Rashad and not get that shit when that shit comes around. Next video.
For the ones working to make every...
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Everything just got more out of whack with the economy. I'm trying to even pick the words to describe what's going on here, but this is the worst economy for most people. Now 70% of the people probably watching this right now, 7 out of 10 of you agree this is the worst. The cost of living, things just continuing to get more expensive. The broken promises, the hope that people had with this administration saying they were going to fix everything, snapped. Just
yep, sure have.
It's broken too. Snap.
But the thing is, like I said, it's the Lord that's controlling these people. Shit, yeah. And the Lord is goddamn, he doing he jacking America up, the whole rest of the world up. When you people thought you had hope, you thought wrong. Let me get a scripture. Because the Lord controlling these men, man. These bankers, the presidents, all these folk. Shit. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whateversoever he will. So pretty much this is the will of Yahweh Shema Rashad. And he controlling these people. And you thought you put your trust in these devils. Yeah, these niggas here told you all this good shit, smooth stuff. It sound good. Sounds sweet in your ears, and now you starting to realize these niggas lied to us. Yep. Come on, bro. How? I mean, anyway.
Snapped in half, or maybe snapped and busted into 1,000 pieces. We don't know, but we'll take a look today. We got oil.
I'll be like, how many presidents have lied to Americans? Oh, I mean, every single one of them. They said they're gonna do this, and they never did. You say they're gonna do that, they never do. They say they're gonna legalize gay marriage. Oh yeah, they do that. And one president said he gonna do something about it, and he ain't did shit about that shit. Hell no. I'm talking about Trump, that fag ass nigga. I don't think he mentions that men should not be entering women's sports, and that's it. He's not trying to ban gay marriages. No. Shit, no.
Prices jumping back up after more.
He ain't stopping no wars either. That shit, none of that shit.
Problems with Iran, trade tariffs, new tariffs added to Canada, another 50%, a 50% tariff on specific dairy, alcohol, and car imports from Canada. Inflation disconnect, a divergence has emerged, with the major stock indexes now still setting new records every few days, sometimes every day, even as inflation surges. Now, it used to be when inflation ran hot, that would be a bad sign because consumers were likely to struggle, and then spending would slow down, and then companies wouldn't make as much money. Now we're seeing that completely disconnected. We're seeing inflation running hot, but the stock market still go to all-time highs. In other words,
let's get to the article, man.
Advantages for getting ahead financially in the U.S. Replacing traditional idea of education, working hard, climbing up the corporate ladder are enough to build wealth. Key points: financial.
Yeah, the new American dream, having parents who can help pay for it. Yeah, I sometimes had issues with my money, man. I'd be low on cash, especially during the winter time. I gotta add my dad and my mom to borrow some money. Yep. It get rough, bro. Borrow some money, pay them back with no interest.
Help from parents. Increasingly, is important. In other words, if you don't get a hand up or a hand out, then you're less likely to make it today than you were harder than at any point before. Many younger Americans rely on family support for college, home, down payments, emergency expenses, or starting businesses. And that's this part of this wealth gap we see, right? The baby boomers, the older people that bought their home back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, bought their first home and maybe climbed the real estate ladder or built wealth or just gained equity just for living in a home, just gained a bunch of equity. Well, they're the ones that are helping out their kids, and the kids are having a harder time, so now they need more help than ever. So it's just a cycle, right? The wealth transfer is underway. As baby boomers age, tens of trillions of dollars are expected to pass to younger generations over the next 2 decades. However, the accounting for retirement, pending debt, taxes, and other factors, one estimate suggests that 36 trillion will actually be inherited. Wow. So you've got the people that are doing better. More likely, if you bought your home back 10, 20, 30 years ago, you're in the top 30%. Being born after 1980.
All right. Anyway, if you want to watch the rest of this video, be my guest. They go to title, they go to channel. Let's get to this one. I'm gonna have to wrap it up, man.
Brought to you by Apple Card. Apple Card lets you earn daily cash back on
First and foremost, energy, metals, minerals, fertilizer, and food are the businesses to be in now. Nothing else. That's where you put your money. AI is a bubble. SpaceX is a bubble. Energy disruption always detonates financial markets. The war is not over. The structure of the world is not yet changed. It's changing, but it has not reset. Will it reset? Yes. Iran has won the war. The United States has lost the war. Israel has not won the war. It has not yet completely lost the war. But it will. Whatever we sign shortly thereafter, the Israelis will resume the offensive.
Israelis gonna escalate the war because the Lord gonna make them escalate the war. Shit.
Iran will respond by attacking Israel. The pressure on President Trump to re-engage in support of Israel will be overwhelming. He will be pressured to re-engage. And whenever he goes in and whatever he does with our armed forces, once it's been done, he's going to say, I've done all I can't do anymore, and then he will begin disengaging. This was inevitable. There's an old expression, a ship is a fool to fight a fort. You could have brought the entire United States Navy along with the naval power of all of our allied nations, and we still would have lost. The topography, the geography, all of it was against us. And the Iranians have mastered the real revolution in military affairs. That is, they've linked all the space-based and terrestrially based surveillance, intelligence, reconnaissance platforms to these thousands of ballistic missile platforms and cruise missiles and unmanned systems. And we can't possibly destroy them all, and they can reach all of us long before we reach them. And we engaged thinking that we could do all of this without ground forces, and then we decided, well, we may need ground forces, and we discovered something we've all known for a long time. We don't really have an army. We have a gesture, not the real thing. Where do we go from here? Short term, you've got to be prepared for the price of oil to go back up again. Will it ever come down? Well, it's going to take some time because, first of all, you're going to extract all the oil that you can, and you're going to put that oil into your strategic reserves. We will do that. The Japanese will do that. The Chinese will do that. Everybody will do that in the advanced world. And in the developing world, especially the global south, where there were no reserves, they're going to build reserves. So the demand for oil, the demand for natural gas, the demand for all the energy that can be created is going to dramatically outstrip the supply. And as long as there is more demand than supply, the price of those things is going to go up. The Indians, the Japanese, the Chinese are all going to run their plants on coal. If you're in coal, you're very smart and you want to deliver as much of it as you possibly can because the world needs it. And some of it will be thrown straight into the furnace and burned to power plants, but a lot of it will be liquefied. In addition to that, nuclear power is going to be on the agenda. And the states which have maintained their nuclear power stations are very fortunate. And you're stuck. You have to go back to whatever you can find in the meantime. But in the meantime, what you have is all you're going to get because it takes time and capital to build refineries. It takes time and capital to drill. It takes time and capital to mine. These things are all going to be at a premium. Everything else is fugazi, but energy, metals, minerals, fertilizer, and food, that's where you want to be. The world we live in today is changing, and structurally it's going to look very, very different in the future because, especially in the Middle East, the first thing that you're going to see is that all of the arrangements that we and our British and French allies reached in the Middle East after World War I, and then subsequently were reaffirmed only this time largely under American leadership after World War II, are all going to disintegrate. All the states that you see today on the Arabian Peninsula really are largely artificial. Before the First World War, yes, you had various Arab tribes that had areas of concentration and influence, but real modern states in the sense that we think of it didn't exist. These states can't protect themselves from determined enemy attack, wherever that comes from. We have now demonstrated conclusively that we cannot protect them. That means that they're going to have to search elsewhere for friends and allies that can help protect them. Now, who are those friends and allies? Well, believe it or not, they're going to have to come to terms with Iran. Iran is on the road to becoming a great power. There's another great power in the neighborhood that is sitting on the sidelines. It's called Turkey. And the Turks have the largest military force. They also have substantial scientific industrial base, everything from nuclear power to steel production. They are in a position to engage. As it becomes clear that Iran has won, and as we Americans disengage from the region, which we will do, we are not going to go back into the Persian Gulf, pour billions of dollars into new...
Really? They're not going to. Well, the Lord can make them.
Facilities and new bases that we cannot protect. It's not going to happen. So we're going to pull out. When we pull out, Iran rises as the leading Islamic power, and it becomes clear that
But, I don't know.
Israel is now largely on its own, and it too cannot protect itself any longer. The Turks will engage. What are the Turks going to do? Well, they're going to crush the Kurds. Guess who else wants to be done with the Kurds? Iran. But my point is, the truth is telling us that long term, right now, as I see the forces developing across the region and around the world, there's no future for Israel in the Middle East. Now, the rest of the world has watched what has happened to us, and they've said, well, these Americans have turned out to be incapable of coping with this new revolution in military power. They can't protect us. That means if you're in Japan, we can't protect the Japanese. If you're in Korea, we can't protect the Koreans. If you want...
But they can protect the small hats. Yeah, they can protect Amalek. And Amalek is the first of all anyway. They're the first priority when it comes to protection. Shit.
To start a war over Taiwan's independence, you can't protect Taiwan. So that means we're probably going to be invited to leave most places where we currently garrison. In other words, this American military hegemony, which has become global in the last 80 years, is going to go away. Now, we've already seen the outlines of this departure in Europe. I think the handwriting's on the wall. We can't protect Europe from the kind of military power that we've seen employed in Iran, and the Russians have plenty of it. The Russians are actually the original creators of this ISR strike capability. You've got to go back to the 1970s. You look at the work of Marshal Ogarkov and his brain trust, especially Mahmoud Garayev. These men put together everything that you've seen in Iran, only they envisioned something even more powerful and profound, and that was orbiting around the planet, which means that we're probably going to see either new treaties or agreements regarding what can happen in space, or if we're very stupid and we refuse to cooperate with these new treaties and new agreements, then we'll see enormous weapons platforms appear in space, which can target as instantly as anything you've seen in Iran, anything that comes within 1,000 miles of anybody's territory. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that we usually treat military power as something separate from everything else. But in reality, military power, economic prosperity, science, technology, all of these things are inextricably intertwined. We no longer have a monopoly on many of the things that we've enjoyed for the last 80 years. And these things are proliferating. And it's not just Iran. And the point is, you cannot do business in the future if you're an American the way you did in the past, which also suggests that we have to turn back to the economic sector. And that brings me back to where everything started. And energy, metals, minerals, fertilizer, and food are the stuff of everything. You can't operate as a civilization without those. If you can't secure those, you're going to go under. So I think what will ultimately happen long term is that we'll come home to the United States. We'll come back to the Western Hemisphere, and we will focus on exactly those things. And that's a good thing, because we haven't focused there for a long time. And it's interesting that President Trump, who promised to do that, has violated his promise. And he's now put us in a very serious position. Fitch published a statement about the creditworthiness of the United States and its economy, and it was pretty grim. And I think we're now on this sort of decline financially and economically, but we're going to hit a point where the decline then becomes a sudden drop. And I think we're going to find ourselves into something akin to a depression. These are the big trends. And I think the Europeans, their governments haven't all figured it out, but I think the Europeans have figured it out. And if I were you as a Dutchman, I would find whoever wants to eliminate your agricultural sector and hang that person and get back to cultivating the kinds of crops that you have in the past, because it's going to be gold. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is being drawn down very quickly. And we're going to get to the point where...
But anyway, what Douglas McGregor failed to realize, that the more closer we are with conflict and war, pretty much it's going to lead to nuclear, and America's going to be destroyed, utterly destroyed. There ain't going to be none of that other shit that he's talking about. None of that shit ain't going to happen. Anyway.
We cannot go...
it's 10:44 on the clock. All praise Yabashim Shah, the Wadi Yabashim Shah.
Down any further by the fall. Now, that could come earlier. It could come at the beginning of August or end of August. So that's the first thing. He knows that. All of our refineries right now are operating at peak performance. We have not built a new refinery in over 25 years. Pretty soon it's going to be very difficult for us to refine the oil and export it. And so we may see a situation where the president intervenes and bans any more exports because of the position we're in with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Those things have an impact. You disrupt the energy markets, the financial markets react. We're not going to suffer as badly as perhaps other countries, but everybody is in a very similar position in that regard. And we've talked about the fertilizer problem, the absence of sulfuric acid, which means that you can't refine a lot of the minerals that you need to, the absence of nitrogen, you can't develop the fertilizer. All of these things continue to plague us. We're seeing record bankruptcies in the agricultural sector. He knows that. And finally, he knows that inflation has continued to climb. Wars breed inflation. I remember when people said, oh, gold will never reach 4,000. Impossible. And then they said, oh, it'll never reach 6,000. Listen, we're going to see it hit 10,000. Now, is there an alternative to it? Yes, I think you're going to see something like Bitcoin that will be utilized as an alternative to the dollar for transactional reasons, as a way to create and sustain private credit. But ultimately, gold will be the coin of the realm. There's no question about it. So at this stage, I would say to anybody that's thinking about investing in it, there is no ceiling for your purposes. The long-term outlook is all positive and up. And these sort of temporary corrections and then restarts back up the ladder are going to continue. I think Bitcoin, as a transactional means of doing business, because it's very hard to move gold tonnage from point to point. The Chinese, as you know, have set up vaults for that purpose in Riyadh and Hong Kong. So
all right, anyway, America's going to shit. Anyway, Zephaniah chapter 1 verse 10, and it shall come to pass in that day, shall the Lord Yahweh, that there shall be a noise of a crying from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hill. So pretty much the market's crashing. This shit's gonna collapse eventually. Everything's gonna go belly up financially, and then need to come fast, man. I'm about tired of this crap. I didn't even expect these videos were going to be about, well, a couple of them will be about the financial woes of America, but I didn't really want to give it that title when I first did the introduction. I just said I got a bunch of videos related to America, and I don't know if I said that it's all bad news, but it pretty much is. Anyway, let me see. Let me see. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 16. Thou art filled with shame and glory. Talking about America, Babylon the Great. Woe unto him that give. Oh no, that drink thou also. Let the foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand. The Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be upon thy glory. For the violence of Libya, I'm gonna start right there, but yeah, the Lord kicking this place ass. Let's get to this next one, the last one.
Flexing up your game? Always.
I ain't talking about, what is this? Goddamn skinhead nigga. Full spectrum survival. What's the title? Alert. If I am right about this, the next disaster already started. The rule of law is a myth. So I guess it's gonna be civil unrest.
With SoFi Plus, you can get up to $1,000 plus.
Inside of the United States of America, we are about to experience a cataclysmic breakdown in the rule of law. The rule of law is a political weapon. It does not deserve the power.
Man, that nigga look like he'll eat somebody.
That it has been given. Officially, the rule of law meant that everyone in a country was equal before the law. What happens when a country still has courts, they have police, judges, elections, and laws, but people no longer believe that those rules are applied equally? You can already see that inside of our country, that we are in the early stages of a breakdown. Soon the rule of law will be dead and over. It's one of those phrases that everyone
And then the love of many shall wax cold. Yep.
repeats because it sounds important or even civilized. Politicians say it, judges, international criminal courts.
Oh, that'd be division, a lot of division.
Nobody
Egyptians versus Egyptians.
stops to think or even ask what happens when that social contract dies. We're seeing it right now. The law is supposed to stand above the rich, even above the poor. Politicians, cops, judges, and shoot, it's supposed to be a law governed above the government itself. The U.S. Constitution establishes a government whose authority comes from the people and not against them. It's supposed to be difficult enough to change that whoever controls the government can't just rewrite the rules to punish who they hate and benefit who they party with. At least that's the sales pitch. But when you really watch how our country operates, I'm seeing something very different. We're dead. As a law-based nation, we are dead. Laws selectively enforce the beneficiary. The officials get protected and citizens are being crushed over technical violations. This is while the government...
Yeah, the same people that's screwing your ass over financially, taking every whatever you consider wealth out of your pocket, out of your bank account, and then putting it in their shit, in their holdings, and leaving you a none. They just straight up taking shit from you. Yeah, the law is protecting them people, cause they're the ones that make the law. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones who make the rules. Anyway,
the definition.
Hey, the earth was given to the hands of the wicked. Oh, when the wicked bear fruit, the people mourn. A lot of people mourning. They mad as hell at the wicked. Even the Esau, lower level Esau, mad at the higher ups of Esau.
And they do it when the old rules start to lessen either their money.
They should be mad instead of being mad at Jake. Cause these fucking dumb low level niggers, fucking dumb white motherfuckers worrying about us and shit. You need to be worried about your own fucking people. They're the ones that fucking you over. Oh man, they are fucking you up so bad financially, and plus with the food, the water, and the air. They killing your ass with they toxic crap that you niggas consuming daily, just like we consume it. But you still want to look at us as like we're the biggest threat in the world. Psh. Anyway.
Or their power. Let me tell you, next year is going to suck. If you think that the old draconian laws of the early to mid 2000s were bad, just wait until every glance that you use on your phone or down the street becomes scrutinized by an algorithm. We're looking at burning courthouse territory here. Police stations getting abandoned. Like in much of the world, from the Taliban to South America, gangs will begin to control entire regions. It already started, and that's scary. People stopped believing that following the rules will protect them. We already see it right now. Small business owners, they're told to watch as thieves walk out of their store without consequence. But the business owner, well, he's penalized with fines over a missing permit. Homeowners are put into prison. I'm talking don't drop the soap, somebody's girlfriend prison, if they choose to defend their property or their life. And the people trespassing, they have more legal protection than the homeowner does.
Thanks to Purdue Global, I got my literal dream job, but I couldn't just drop everything to go back to school. Classwork and seminars.
The social contract underneath what you grew up with
that commercial AI probably would.
is already dead. One government tracks foreign influence, and they get called authoritarian. Another does nearly the same thing, but they say they're defending democracy. Canada, during the 2022 convoy protest, invoked emergency powers that forced or allowed banks to freeze accounts without legal or government representation, and the government called it temporary and a necessary response to an anti-government illegal blockade. Right now, we are seeing surveillance become so-called democratic process protection, but only when it's approved. Institutions are the ones that are conducting it. Financial punishment is renamed emergency management. And the curtailed First Amendment and online platform discussions are now a new fight against systemic risk. You see, this is where the pattern starts becoming dangerous. The law only holds society together when people voluntarily cooperate with it. They pay their taxes. Is it a legal requirement? I guess that's up to a constitutional lawyer. They obey the contracts, they wait their turn, they walk only when they're told to walk, where they're allowed to, they stop at the red lights, and they accept the outcomes they don't like because they believe that everyone else is living under roughly the same treatment. Once people decide that the agreement is fake, their behavior changes. They start withdrawing from that voluntary agreement. They don't report crimes because nothing will happen anymore. Or worse, they'll be the ones that go to jail. They cancel their insurance because the claims are denied while their premiums increase, and the blood-pumping American citizen stops believing that the court is here to protect us. And then what happens?
Yeah, that'd be Esau. They thinking that low-level Esau, he thinking that this the system is for him and only for him. It turned out, nope, the system against you now. Yep. Now y'all feeling like feeling like Jake right now.
New businesses don't open up. People stop helping strangers, and they start creating private systems, private security, private networks, private rules, because the public system is no longer neutral. The Muslims are doing it right now in America. It's what Chinatown has always been. It's how gangs operate on American soil. It's a closed loop. They have their own laws. You see the Amish do it. If you have a problem...
Oh, yeah, we getting in that time where, everybody's going to be going to their own people. When I say division, what did I have that scripture? Nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Yeah, when you're going to have people from different nations going to be coming to their nations, but then you're going to have when it comes to tribes, like, you know, the nation of Israel, we still gonna be somewhat divided from blacks, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, and you have Israelites that look like other nations, but they could be the nations of Israel. You gonna have Israelites that gonna look like this nigga. This nigga look like he gonna eat somebody. But yeah, but it's gonna be division on a whole lot of it. Holy shit! But when it comes to the hopeful elect, the become of the elect, shit, we ain't spiritually divided. We might be far away from one another, but we ain't spiritually divided. We pray to not be spiritually divided from you. How about Shema Shah, if that sounds right? Anyway, yeah, I think, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, because you spiritually divided from the Lord, then that means you're 2/3.
Problem with an Amish kid, you don't call the cops. You go speak face to face with their religious leader. Now, in just a few months, everyone inside of our country is going to realize that America's social contract is dead. It's over. More people are about to start ignoring the laws that they believe to be wrong or illegitimate. Or
Gonna be, yeah, gonna be, gonna say fuck that shit.
place for power and not process. You'll still have police, but
Most people ain't gonna give a fuck about them. And the police probably gonna be end up defending themselves or their own family.
time and reaction will suck. The stores will be open, but everything worth more than $3 will sit behind glass, along with shorter hours and higher prices. Folks, it's July 19th, 2026, and the banks still have your money in their account, but they get to choose whether or not you can access your own money. And it's about to get worse. With digitization and technocracy, whether or not you can have your own money back depends on whether your activity, your identity, or your opinions fit within an approved system. There's another stage after that. And this is the one that people aren't ready for the most. Informal authority. When official authority loses its legitimacy, informal authority often replaces it. Most NPC behavior-driven humans cannot live without being told what to do every second of the day. We've seen all versions of this all over the world. Somehow Americans make the mistake of believing that geography exempts us from the rawest of complete ignorance through NPC behavior.
Fleas jumping off your pet and setting up camp in your home. I'm sure you can't see them, but you...
I'm gonna start this video. Yeah, I'm gonna start this video. So if you wanna watch the rest of it, they go to title, they go to video, but you get it. And with all this shit about the financial system collapsing and all that, yeah, it's gonna lead to riots and civil unrest and all that shit. Hey man, you better be prayed up, Yahweh Shema Shah, and pray like heaven, Lord, have mercy on you, cause it's going down. Ah man, damn itchy. But and it's funny, this shit came up and he's scratching like mosquito bites. They're talking about fleas. I don't remember fleas don't make your skin welt. And I mean, it feel like shit crawling underneath your skin though. 'Cause I remember I got bit by some fleas. When I first moved in the house, they had a dog that was living here. That motherfucker had there was so many fleas in that backyard. I had to spray that shit up. I killed them suckers though. I didn't have my dog at the time. But she wasn't born at that time yet. But yeah, I got bit by them fleas, boy. I was itching. I was like feeling weird. Felt like parasites was in my body. I don't know. But damn. But anyway, yeah, I ain't got much to say, man. Just letting you know, financial woes are building up here in America, Babylon the Great, and it's spreading all over the world. So this ain't gonna be no. The problems are gonna be. It's gonna pretty much be everywhere around the world, but especially here in America, Babylon the Great. Yep. And then there will be civil unrest. So best thing you need to do, get right with the Lord, seek the Lord by seeking His prophets, and take heed what to say, and try to build a spiritual mental relationship with Yahweh Shema Shah. By praying Yahweh Shema Shah, praising Yahweh Shema Shah, worshiping Yahweh Shema Shah, fearing Yahweh Shema Shah, and repenting Yahweh Shema Shah. To all the men out there pushing this truth and nothing but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh Shema Shah. Keep on preaching, keep on teaching, keep faith, and your trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah, stay humble. And for you few sisters out there taking heed, keep your faith and trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah, stay humble, stay in order with your man. If you ain't got no man, stay in order. Yahweh Shema Shah. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, and all praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. Shalom.